We are about to talk about U.S.-Canada cross-border investing again. We've done this with Dan Walkow. There's another 12, 10 things on the website that you can see if you want to get some other answers. And if you have a question for Dan, you want to talk to him later because you missed this or you're watching it in archives, you can get hold of him at 1-866-541-9952. Did I get the number right?
You got it right.
I got the number right. And now Richard's left the camera, so I can't see myself anymore because he left the thing flipped over. It doesn't matter, of course. What I like doing is when he's doing the camera, moving it way over so that I'm not in the camera as he moves it around and having fun. Anyway, I'm David Ingram. The program is Ingram. Cross Canada, cross border, U.S., whatever, income tax, RSPs, IRAs, 401ks, cash accounts, U.S. stocks in a Canadian account, Canadian stocks in a U.S. account, an American account, Canadian dollars, Canadian. Is there anything I've missed that you don't do?
Well, the last thing is, I guess the last thing we have added to the CBank offering list is the foreign currency transaction.
Ooh, yes, the FX, the foreign exchange.
Yeah. So
And that's big. You were kind enough to invite me out for coffee and sandwiches in your office and just on the border of White Rock there, and we had a fellow in from, where was he from, Montreal?
Montreal.
Montreal.
Yeah.
And he gave a interesting demonstration on how their system works. So why don't you talk to us about it?
Well, one of the things that we, in the cross-border business, I guess one of the things we run into from time to time is people moving across the border and, they'll sell a house in the United States or sell a house in Canada, and they'll want to move the money into the into U.S. dollars or back to Canadian. And as we spoke about before in this show, and as we all know, I mean, if you've been to the bank and exchanged some money, just how much they take from you in terms of the conversion rates.
They take a lot of money.
At the retail level, I mean, in a typical brokerage account, the spread, the spread is the difference between the buy side and the sell side, right? So the difference being the spread. Nowadays, for smaller amounts of money, typically the spread is as much as 300 basis points. That's 3%. 3%.
Yeah.
So on arguably $100,000, that's $3,000.
Well, let me try if I can explain it. You got $100. You got $103. You go to the bank and you want to buy. So it doesn't even work because let's pretend there's no exchange. There's no difference in the no difference. The dollar U.S. is worth $1 Canadian.
Right.
$1 Canadian is worth $1 U.S.
Yeah.
So if you want to buy $1 U.S., you have to give them $1.03 Canadian. And then if you trade your dollar back, they want $1.03 to give it back. So in that case, they might be taking 6% on your exchange, and that's what happened in lots of brokerage houses when people were changing their.
This is one of the things. This issue of currency transactions is a big deal at the brokerage account. Say, for example, let's just do two examples here. One in a brokerage account. Say you're a Canadian with a U.S. dollar account. Typical at every brokerage, you get two sides to your account, one a Canadian side, one a U.S. side.
Absolutely.
But say you want to keep things simple, so you have a Canadian account or say an RSP, and you happen to like Apple iPods, or you own an iPhone, and you think, you know what, I want to own some Apple stock in my
American stock.
So you phone your broker and you say, buy me 100 shares of Apple. It's $200 or whatever the case may be. So that's fine. So what they do, they have to estimate, say there's $20,000 worth. They have to go buy the U.S. dollar first. So they take a markup on that. Then they go buy the Apple stock, put it into your account, and it's held in the RSP, for example. And then 6 months later, you decide that the new Android system from Google and the new phone from Google is an Apple iPhone killer.
A killer, yeah.
And you say, my God, I made a mistake, and I want to sell that Apple before it goes down some more. So you phone the broker up, and he says, sell the Apple. So what he's got to do is sell the Apple in the market, receives U.S. dollars for the sale, and he has to convert it back to Canadian to settle into your RSP. So you get clipped both two ways on the currency, on the buy side and the sell side. And these amounts used to be in the old days about, I think a good spread would be 150 basis points or about 1.5. Now, because it's not a reportable transaction, they don't have to tell you what the spread is. you either tell you the rate and you either accept it or not. So you really don't know how much you're paying.
Well, they give you a sheet that says how much it is in Canadian dollars and how much it is in American dollars, but nobody ever takes that sheet and goes to the Bank of Canada and sees what the official rate is that
Well,
day.
not only that, but here's a little trick you can use. If you want to know how much you're being charged, go in and ask, say, to convert $100,000 at a bank or a currency exchange, and say, I want to buy U.S. dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So you you get the offering price for U.S. dollars, and then then at the same time say, oh no, well, you know what, I want to sell them, so give me a bid. So ask for the offer and ask for the bid, and that'll be the differential between the buy and the sell price.
Okay.
And that differential is the spread, and that's how much you're paying for currency conversion. Anyways, one of the things we've done is, you know, we're qualified currency dealers. And with our association with the fellows you met, we have the ability to trade currency at wholesale. So two things as far as clients in the United States and Canada that we can offer. One is that if you want to say you're a Canadian in anywhere USA, or even in Canada for that matter, and you want to own some U.S. securities in your RIF, your LIRA, your RSP, you say, you know, I got $200,000 in the RSP. I want to put $75,000 into U.S. dollar investments because Canada doesn't have much of a healthcare investment scene, and I want to own some Merck or Bristol Myers or whatever in the U.S. dollars. In our RSPs, we can just buy the currency once, $5,000, and leave it in U.S. dollars. Still stays in your plan.
So if you sell the Merck and you get U.S. dollars, you don't change it back into Canadian dollars.
Right.
You leave it in U.S. dollars.
Leave it in U.S. dollars.
So if they want to buy another stock in U.S. dollars, they can just keep the U.S. dollars going.
Exactly.
Whereas all these other guys, and I see it all the time,
Yeah.
you know, because we're doing the capital gain sales
Yeah.
on Schedule 3 of the Canadian or the American return, and we see they take it and they sell something in U.S. dollars, they trade it to Canadian dollars, and then they trade it back to U.S. dollars and buy another stock.
Yeah.
And there's like 6% gone in that
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah. So exactly, and you think if you're a dividend investor or whatever,
And I'm not talking 6% because that's the exchange rate. I'm talking about that's the service fees.
oh yeah, so it's really, really expensive. So we've come up with a
Plus
solution.
there's the commissions for selling the
Oh,
damn
yeah.
thing and stuff, but signing the
So
bill.
we've come up
buying and
with a solution for this, where you as a Canadian retirement account holder can enjoy both U.S. dollar and Canadian dollar settlement privileges in your plan,
within your plan.
and avoid all these conversion
Now,
costs.
is there something by law that says that most brokers can't do that,
No.
or is it just their policy?
No.
I understand it's just their
There
policy.
was, all this started, David, in 2002 when there was a fella who sued the Bank of Montreal, actually. And he bought some IBM, and they forced conversion back to Canadian dollars. And he sold it, and he sued them. And he said, there's no law in Canada that says you have to settle in Canadian dollars. So it it went to court and whatever, and they ruled, and they said absolutely, there's no regulation, but because the revenues accruing to the brokers has been so large, they've been very reluctant
To give it up.
to give it up. So, and today what you're seeing, certainly with progressive custodial relationships such as we have, you know, it's kind of leading edge but you'll see, in my opinion, the bigger shops will come in very slowly, kind of to give that up. So that's one example. So there's significant savings, certainly at the larger dollar amounts. The second example I'd like to give in buying and selling a house, because this is something you see a lot of. If you
Okay, let me just make this